Hi, g'day, mate. 40 here. So, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, the Luv Guv, seems to be in a little bit of bother. I guess he's not the next president of the United States. Maybe he's just not going to restore Camelot after all. I mean, I don't know about you. I just had so many hopes and dreams invested in this
now
guy.
On record calling for Cuomo's resignation, ranging from older board members, like the House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler, to newer progressive members, including Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Jamal Bowman, Mondaire Jones. Trouble in Albany for the governor, too. New York State lawmakers have now launched an impeachment inquiry with the power to issue subpoenas and to call witnesses. More than 50 state Democratic legislators, signed onto a letter yesterday also calling on Cuomo to resign. The state lawmakers writing this: he has lost the confidence of the public and...
So I was talking to a friend in New York City, and he says, I think Andrew Cuomo knows the end is coming. The pot regulations rush is to set licenses before going out of office. Biggest moneymaker now for states going green is the corrupt awarding of who gets licenses. Andrew Cuomo at one point did marry into Camelot. He married a Kennedy. His fate was sealed the minute that Donald Trump lost re-election. Andrew Cuomo's tough guy New York shtick wasn't needed anymore to counter Trump's bullying. I remember saying that Cuomo might want Trump to win more than anyone in America. His path to the presidency in 4 to 12 years, perhaps along with Kamala Harris, is gone. The New York progressives just see an old school Italian guy who does a poor job at pretending to be a social progressive for expedience sake.
And the state legislature, rendering him ineffective in this time of most urgent need. This morning's cover of the New York Post highlights the pressure the governor now faces. I can hold that up for you right here. That's Cuomo must go. That's not a good day for the governor. CNN's Shimon Prokopez joining us now live from Albany. Manu Raju with us here in studio. Shimon, let's start with the pressure at home. A new impeachment inquiry, the power of subpoena, the power to call witnesses, and more state Democrats saying, Governor, no room here.
No room at the end.
And more. And now a majority of the Senate Democrats here, the state Senate Democrats, are calling on him to resign. He's continually losing members of his own party, certainly in this state. Now, as you said, there is this impeachment proceeding that is going to take place by members of the Assembly. They're putting together the impeachment hearing. It's going to be members of the Assembly that out of committee, they're going to be looking at the different information that has come out. They have, as you said, subpoena power. They have other capabilities to call witnesses. This is all going to come out of the Judiciary Committee here at the State Assembly. Now, also, for the first time since all of this, the impeachment, and then this growing list of Democrats calling for the governor to resign, for the first time, we are going to hear from the governor today at around 1 o'clock in a press call. This is his normal.
Wow, how does CNN make this story just sound so boring? I mean, it's a great story, but when the news media wants to, they could just make a story just sound incredibly boring. I mean, at least Fox doesn't usually make stories deliberately boring.
Accused, right, with evidence. Now he wants that kind of due process for himself, so he doesn't really have a lot of ground to stand on. And when you have both high-profile Democrats and Republicans coming out and telling him he needs to step aside, the pressure grows. But at this point, if he were to do that, his own argument would look pretty bad.
All right, so Jesse, just picking up on what Katie was saying, I think there's some people who say, you know what, let the Attorney General's investigation go forward in the name of due process and giving the women a full hearing.
And breaking news, New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo, he's invited all his accusers to come forward and to gather in a New York nursing home.
Hearing, but other people say that's just going to give him more time, and drag this thing out. What does Jesse Waters say?
I say he's not allowed to use the phrase cancel culture. That's our phrase.
Yes!
You can't steal our phrase from us. That is cancel cultural appropriation.
Yes.
Governor. Also, he said something else. I'm not a member of this big political club. Really? Your father was a governor and you used to be married to a Kennedy. And not only he's a member, he's like one of the trustees. That's like Jeb Bush saying he's not a member of the political club. Come on. I do agree, though, technically he's innocent until proven guilty, and he can go through whatever process they have in store, whether it's the Albany police, a state investigation, and impeachment. I'm fine with that. What I'm not fine with, and if he wants to remain innocent in the eyes of himself, I'm not fine with him being so wounded politically that he's not able to function as a governor, that he's not able to fulfill the duties of the governor of New York.
So Andrew Cuomo got married in 1990 to Kerry Kennedy, the seventh child of Robert and Ethel Kennedy, and they had 3 daughters. They separated in 2003. He began dating Food Network host Sandra Lee in 2005. The couple moved in together in 2011. In September 2019, they announced they had ended their relationship. And Andrew Cuomo is a Roman Catholic, all in favor of abortion rights and same-sex marriage, and living with Sheilas before marriage.
New York, and the people who put him there are being left without a leader in a time of a pandemic and economic recovery. So I think that's the point where you have to say, you know what? We haven't even gone through the process, but I can't even serve you effectively, so I'm out. And that might be an off-ramp for him. It is kind of creepy the way this thing's turned. It started off with kind of ham-handed flirtation and kind of stupid pressure and maybe inappropriate touching or kissing, allegedly. And now the latest reporting, he looks like he's grooming women. He looks like a predator. And it looks like he had been doing this for several years, allegedly, and using the power that we gave him as voters to exploit women. And so that's, I think, where it's now become dangerous. But personally, I never want to be praised.
Okay, I don't think it's become dangerous. On the other hand, I don't think these allegations about misconduct with women are totally irrelevant. Look, everything we do reflects on who we are. It's not like, oh, when it comes to sex, I just like a little finger up the bum. But aside from that, I'm just totally straight. No, I mean, if you like a finger up the bum, I'm not judging you, but there's probably a whole lot of other kinky things going on with you. And it's not like, oh, what I do in the privacy of my own home, that's nobody's business, because what you do in the privacy of your own home does radiate outward. Everything we do affects other people. I remember I was just an innocent lad. Okay, talking 1997. I was just 30 years of age. I was just an innocent wee lad. And I went to interview Kitten Natividad about her career for my book. And she had a flourishing career in working for Russ Meyer. She was a Hollywood starlet. And then she crossed over to the San Fernando Valley, crossed over to the adult genre, made several movies in the adult genre. She was quite the Renaissance woman. And we had a nice little dinner. And then I helped her install AOL 3.0 on her computer. And I was just an innocent tyke. I was just 30 years of age. She was 52. She was an experienced woman. She knew what she liked. She knew what she wanted. And I was just saying goodbye and just gave her a nice little hug at the door to say goodbye. And the next thing I know, we're on the floor with our clothes off, going at it. She took advantage of my youth, my naivete, my innocence. I mean, I'd only come there with the most professional of intentions. And then while we're doing the ultimate deed, she keeps imploring me to stick a finger up her bum. Like, I'm 40. That's not my thing. I've never done that in my life. I'm a straight arrow. I'm a very conservative man. I'm a very respectable man. I don't do that. So, come on. I mean, I got out of there by saying, oh, maybe next time. But there was no next time. All right? I'm just not used to that level of kink. So, everything we do, it reflects on us. Yes, I got the jab. I got the vaccine, the Pfizer vaccine yesterday. I've never felt stronger. I've never felt better. Yeah. Bartok in The Rise of the Warrior Apes, he didn't like a finger in his bum either. I do not like a little finger up the bum. I have never had it, and I'm willing to testify to that. I will stand up and say that. No one can ever say I put a finger up 40's bum, and no one can ever say that 40 put a finger up my bum. All right? I just don't roll that way. All right? So, and do I come on here complaining that this voracious lady took advantage of my naive, tyke like status? No. Well, yeah, I've had a prostate check, but it wasn't for pleasure. I mean, that was medical. I mean, and he put a glove on it, and I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't an erotic experience. Can I feel yeah, I feel the power of the Pfizer vaccine. I have never felt stronger. I've never felt happier. I've never felt more fulfilled as a man. So is everyone, you, forget everyone. Let me just talk to you. Are you feeling comfortable in your sexuality today? That's what I want to know. Are you comfortable in your sexuality? Because I certainly am. Yeah, getting your prostate checked, that doesn't count. And I mean, in those early years when I first moved to LA, the number of times that women about 10, 15 years older than me took advantage of my kindly nature, just innumerable. All right, so the way you talk to Sheilas online, all right, and then the way you talk to them in real life, and then the way you talk to them on the phone or on Skype or FaceTime, and the way you chat with them on JDate or Tinder, right? That's not radically separate from how you are in the rest of your life. That's not radically separate from how you're going to be as a husband, right? How we date is how we mate. It's how we will relate. It all goes together. It's not like, oh, I just like a little finger up the bum in this aspect of my life. Otherwise, I'm just totally a Torah true Jew. All right? These things run together. So Andrew Cuomo and his kind of awkward, creepy interactions with women, it kind of goes together with his awkward, creepy ways that he tries to hide the statistics in his nursing homes. All right, I even wrote down my thoughts here. I wanted to gather them together to present to you. How you talk to women, how you touch women, how you flirt with women, how you date women, how you text women, how you bed women, how you relate to women after the bed. They're all predictors of how you'll do in a marriage to a woman, and they all reflect who you are in the rest of your life. We date the way we mate, right? It's not like dating and mating and relating in just completely separate categories. So I don't buy that, no, the politician, he just likes to finger up his bum. Other than that, he's just a solid citizen. All right, what people do in their sex lives reveals who they are, right? The way we go after women is going to be pretty similar to how we go after business opportunities, right? Who you sleep with and how you sleep with them, it reveals you. So if you want to know about the governor, then how he interacts with women is just part of the story. And if you're not interested in people, if you're above and beyond gossip, I don't get it. That's so anti-human. If you're interested in other people, then you're going to be interested to a degree in their love life. Now, who I am on this show is very similar to who I am when I am engaged in acts of courtship. All right? You just ask around Beverly Hills, Santa Monica, Bel Air, West Los Angeles. I am widely known as a sensitive, caring, considerate, and generous lover. This Sheila called me the other day from out of the blue. I hadn't spoken to her in over a decade. And back in the day, she used to go around LA and she would state in parties, women should pay Luke Ford for sex. I don't like to boast. Boasting is not what I'm about. She was another satisfied customer. We all have our own approaches to Tikkun Olam. Like different people have different gifts. Now, I don't know if the allegations against New York Governor Andrew Cuomo are sufficient to force him from office, but I don't think they're nothing either. I don't think they are irrelevant to the performance of his public duties, because the line between public and private is always going to be unexpectedly permeable at times. Like, I'm doing a stream here, and who knows, like all sorts of, shocking things from my past may, come up, and I may be revealed as a bit of a larrikin. So everything we do affects other people. People will put up with a lot of bad behavior in certain circumstances, and then the circumstances change, and they won't stand for it any longer. And that seems what's happened with Andrew Cuomo. They were willing to put up with his bad behavior for a while, particularly during the Trump era. Now that Trump's no longer in office, they're sick of it. Now, when people hate you, they're not usually going to tell you exactly why they hate you. So a lot of people now feel comfortable stating they hate Andrew Cuomo. And they say, it's his bullying and his abuse. That's what we object to. That's probably just the line they think is most effective to get what they want. So if you want to destroy a man's life right now, the Me Too angle can be particularly effective. Just as the George W. Bush administration pushed the threat of weapons of mass destruction, that was, they thought, the easiest way to make the case for invading Iraq in 2003. But they did not primarily invade Iraq in 2003 to stop the threat of weapons of mass destruction. That was just the easiest talking point. So I notice when people hate me, they choose whichever attack will be most damaging, and those attacks seem to change over time. Also, it seems to me that bullies have a shorter shelf life than more amiable types like myself. So the Bill Parcells, Jimmy Johnsons, Jason Brown, there were 2 series of Last Chance U, seasons 3 and 4, about football coach Jason Brown. These bully types, they don't seem to last long in their jobs. Richard Spencer, another bullying type, hasn't really worked out well for him. So when I would get on TV a lot, I would hear from a lot of women. And so the way I would talk to those women on the phone or via text, and how I talked to them when we'd meet up in coffee, that was all part of who I was. It wasn't like radically different from the conversation that we're having right now. I do a daily YouTube show. I often hear from people around the world. And if, God forbid, those private conversations were published on the front page of the New York Times, you'd not be shocked. These private conversations reflect a similar personality to what radiates from this show. You got here an Aussie bloke filled with radical love and inclusion.
By the mainstream media, Juan, they created this myth of Cuomo, and they've now taken it away. I'd rather live outside that world where you don't need them, because they'll take you out.
Well, so you're the lawyer on the panel today, Shannon. So where do you come out on this issue of due process versus kind of, everybody hanging in limbo for the next few months while the investigation proceeds?
Yeah, and I used to be a sex harassment attorney, so I've handled this specifically. Due process. Yes, due process. We never want to let go of that right for anybody. Anyone who is accused in this country, thank God we have the constitutional protections. Everybody is entitled to those. I thought it was interesting that this latest accuser, the 7th one, says for her, she did not think it was about sex. It was about power. He was kind of putting her in her place, the inappropriate touching, the inappropriate flirting. I also thought it was interesting today that when he had this media phone call, press conference by phone call, when he was specifically asked, did you view any of these as consensual relationships? In your mind, did you think that they were? He really dodged that question. He wouldn't talk about it. So it's possible that in his mind, he did see some of these relationships as they like it, we're flirting back and forth. And honestly, women are put in those positions sometimes where, like the 7th accuser said, you don't raise a big stink. You don't not show up for a meeting where you think you're going to miss something related to your career because it's important. So you put up with the inappropriate behavior because you're trying to work your way around that and protect yourself and protect your own career. But absolutely, as an attorney and one who specialized in sex harassment and dealt with defending people against false accusations from time to time, I think that due process is critical. We should never sacrifice that.
Look, I'm not here to judge glib medley. And the Russians, they would tell their soldiers when they were sent to Afghanistan, if you get captured and if you get raped by the Taliban, don't feel bad that you enjoy it. All right. So if you enjoy these things, there's a prostate there. For many people, it's a source of pleasure. I don't want you to feel bad about yourself. I don't want this to hurt your self-esteem. But it's not like you can just create this big fat wall between a finger and the bum and the rest of Western civilization. You can't create like some gaping chasm between a finger and the bum and the rest of your life. It all goes together. It all reflects who you are. And if you like a finger in the bum, that's like emblematic of your mating, dating, and relating style. And I'm not here to make you feel bad about it, but you just can't like wall that part of you off and go, oh, I'm not going to tell anyone about rimming. I'm not going to tell anyone about that time. You know, we're just going to keep that under wraps and hope that never comes out. All right, that doesn't work.
All right, thanks, Shannon. Coming up, the media praising President Biden's primetime speech last night, but
okay, so now I know for some of you the passion has gone out of your marriage. So what possibly happened?
More important right now. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, I have a question. I've been married 32 years, and I wanted to know if she had any suggestions as to how to bring romance back into my marriage.
May I ask a question, Melissa?
This
How
Dennis
old are
Prager
you?
and Alison Armstrong.
53.
And your husband?
54.
And when did the romance end?
I don't know, probably about 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh, really? So for 27 years you had it.
Yes.
Can you name?
He's got a physical problem.
Okay, which I assume we can guess. Okay.
Right. So,
Melissa, are you referring, when you say romance, do you mean intimacy or sexuality?
Both.
Both. Okay.
Yeah, I knew this guy. His wife got really, really fat, and so they had kids. He didn't want to leave her, so they made a deal that she had to give him a blowjob every morning, and he'd stay with her. So you can overcome these things, all right? It seems like an in Super Bowl obstacle. Oh, your wife now weighs 250 pounds, and she's only 5'2", but you can still find love, romance, and passion there.
On the intimacy side, usually intimacy leaves a relationship when a man becomes convinced that he can't make his woman happy. So when what he does isn't good enough for her and he can't succeed with her, then he shifts his focus from trying to make her happy, which is what has men be romantic. It shifts him trying to make her happy to trying to not upset her. And since men are single focused, they can only do one or the other. They can only pay attention to making a woman happy or pay attention to not upsetting her. And it's two different toolboxes. Make her happy is the whole romance, take care of you, do things for you, surprise you, delight you, that toolbox. Not upset you is don't tell you things you won't like, walk on eggshells, be careful, keep your distance, protect yourself, stay invulnerable. And they, obviously you can see they have two completely different kinds of results.
I think people should memorize what you say.
I think that's why we recorded a lot of it. Like our new In Sync with the Opposite Sex, I think the record is someone's listened to it 20 times.
Yeah. I understand that. And that was very powerful. Okay, let's go to more calls.
Okay,
let's go.
Let's not go to more calls. Let's just have a look at New York Magazine. They got a bunch of reports here, and a cover story published by New York Magazine today. Rebecca Traister reports new allegations of inappropriate behavior by New York governor, who's already been accused of misconduct by 6 women, including a former aide who alleges he groped her in private late last year. And Cuomo now faces an impeachment inquiry. Through interviews with more than 30 women who have worked or interacted with Cuomo, Traister finds that bullying was a defining element of his management style. It's an understanding of political power in which ruthlessness is read as greatness, abuse as passion. So Traister details the connections between his reported behavior and broader allegations of administration impropriety, including alleged cover-up of nursing home deaths during the pandemic. As one former staffer told her, the same attitude that emboldens you to target 25-year-old also emboldens you to scrub a nursing home report. Another former staffer, Caitlin, describes meeting the governor while working at a fundraiser in 2016. She says Cuomo grabbed her in a kind of a dance pose as a photographer took a picture. She recalled thinking, "This is the weirdest interaction I've ever had in my life. I was like, don't touch me. Everybody was watching. That same week, she received a voicemail from Cuomo's office requesting that she interview for a job, even though she never gave his office her contact information. We all knew this was only because of what I looked like. Why else would you ask someone to come in 2 days after you had a 2-minute interaction at a party? So Caitlin says she was frequently pressured to dress expensively during her time in the Cuomo administration. I did what I could with my clothes, she said, and it wasn't good enough for them. On some mornings when Cuomo started his day early, he would ask her if she decided not to get ready today. I'd think, you're such an a-hole. You know you left early, so I didn't have time. Other women who worked in Cuomo's office told New York that female aides were consistently told to dress up. Some were explicitly told by senior staff they had to wear high heels whenever the governor was around. Cuomo's recruitment process was get pretty young women to work for me. So he kept asking aides to find pretty young women he met at parties to work for him. Then journalist Jessica Bateman describes experiencing a pattern of touching and remarks by Cuomo intended to make her uncomfortable. It's not that Cuomo spares men in his orbit from his trademark bullying and demeaning behavior, but the way he bullies and demeans women is different. So another woman says Cuomo was touching her without her permission. He pulled her in and kissed her on her head. Are you jealous? He asked her fiancé, adding, I didn't feel sexually harassed. I just felt like he was trying to make me feel uncomfortable to disarm me. So other women talk about belittling encounters with Cuomo. The governor always asking you, do you have a boyfriend? He would come up with flirtatious nicknames for these pretty young women. Multiple staffers told New York they began therapy and antidepressants for the first time while working for Cuomo. But the results never justified the abuse. It was policy making like paint by numbers. The goals were superficial as opposed to changing people's lives. Policy was secondary to the appearance of progress. Someone from the inner circle would call and say, the governor wants to go to Orange County. What can we announce?
Press call with reporters about COVID, and they say that that is where he's going to potentially take some questions, talk about COVID. But in a lot of these calls, John, these kinds of questions have come up, and that is where he insists. He has insisted previously that he has no intention on resigning. We'll see at 1 o'clock how the governor responds to this, to what the state assembly here wants to do in terms of starting their investigation, but also the growing calls for the governor from members of his own party to resign.
It's lonely for the governor in Albany, with the Democrats saying that as well, and that impeachment inquiry. As we know, once you start getting subpoenas and witnesses, more information on the table. Shimon Prokop is grateful for the reporting from Albany. Mano Raju still with me here in Washington. And Mano, this is largely a New York story, you would think, but then you see it's a big delegation. The New York delegation, a lot of powerful people. We could show again 14 members of the congressional delegation now saying the governor has to go. And it ranges the range of the party, if you will. Yeah. If it were just Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, just
all right, so we've got two different types of allegations. We've got sexual harassment stories, and we've got evidence of mismanagement and fraud. But what is emerging is, in fact, a single story, that through years of ruthless tactics, Cuomo has fostered a culture that supports harassment, cruelty, and deception. So his tough guy routine has worked with many people to obscure governing failures. It is precisely what has permitted Cuomo and his administration to spend a decade being both mean and bad at his job. So his leadership style confuses ruthlessness with greatness, abuse with strength. His administration has been run like a courtish fraternity, like a high school clique, a state executive chamber in which the maintenance of power, the performance of pecking orders, and the pursuit of competitive resentments matter at least as much, if not more, than policy. Though Cuomo has not been accused of anything like the violent crimes that Weinstein committed, he shares Harvey Weinstein. He shares many traits with the now imprisoned movie producer. For years, Harvey Weinstein's famously bad temper and difficult workplace demeanor were understood simply as quirky symptoms of his genius. They were somehow permissible because everybody knew about them. It was just Harvey being Harvey. And Cuomo's behavior has long been excused as Andrew being Andrew, just a powerful man being powerful. Cuomo regularly has people yell on his behalf, including a phalanx of senior women whom he uses as a defensive feminist shield. For Cuomo, a big part of winning meant lying. So his assistants note, I was told it was totally fine to lie. I was always part of some lies and mischaracterization. So one aide was caught on tape acknowledging that data on the nursing home scandal had been hidden to avoid attacks from the Trump administration. And several Cuomo close advisors purposefully altered documents to obscure the truth. He makes things up like I've never seen anyone do before him. He makes people who disagree with him feel like they're crazy. It's a pattern that, like his narcissism, theatrical bombast, love of cameras, hatred of experts, he doesn't believe in much except that he wants to be powerful. So Cuomo is very much like Donald Trump's Democratic twin. The sheer amount of interpersonal drama, anxiety, and rancor that former Cuomo staffers described was wholly exhausting, like something from The Devil Wears Prada. Those beaten down by the vicious workplace were depressed that none of their misery was in service of effective governance or better policy. Cuomo actually has little interest in policy. The goals were superficial. Policy was second to optics. And all the TV adoration that Cuomo got starting about a year ago precipitated his fall. So at first he would come on TV every day, his charismatic calm in the face of panicky instability. He would tick off all these numbers. His updates became a soothing ritual. And as Trump lied and tantrumed and overrode experts, Andrew Cuomo, even though he had similar predispositions, he came across as a competent bomb. Cuomo has long exerted punishing and obsessive control over so many. He was coming close to what he had always sought, the expansion of his power, the eclipse of his father's legacy, a firm spot on the national stage and in the American imagination. And when this was going up, he was just then losing his grip on the political forces within his own state. Major impression that emerges from Andrew Cuomo's 10 years in office is of an immense amount of time wasted. He spends his days yelling at people who say bad things about him rather than governing.
Just the new members like Mondaire Jones and Jamal Bowman, you might say, oh, it's the new guard, it's the younger crowd, but it's everybody here. Kathleen Rice, Jerry Nadler, Grace Meng, just across the party here, older members as well, Carolyn Maloney, Sean Maloney. This is everybody.
Yeah,
almost.
Jerry Nadler, that's a very significant person. He's the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. He's been in New York politics for a very long time. He has a lot of sway. Also, Sean Patrick Maloney, he's the chairman of the House Democratic Campaign Committee. He clearly did not want to be labeled as someone siding with this embattled governor in the middle of all these scandals. But what we've heard from also is silence coming from Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader. I've reached out to his office this morning. They are not responding to questions in the wake of all these members coming out calling for his resignation. Schumer has said that these are serious allegations. They need to be investigated. He said that this morning as well, but he has been saying that for days. He has refused to go beyond that. And also Kirsten Gillibrand, remember, the New York Democratic senator, she was on the front lines and calling for Al Franken's ouster in the middle of those sexual harassment allegations, ultimately leading to Al Franken's resignation from the Senate. She has not done so.
Okay, breaking news from the Washington Post. The average American is 33 pounds heavier than the average Frenchman.
On this situation, I asked her this week, how is Cuomo different from Al Franken? She refused to answer that question. She would only say, I put out a statement. Her statement said, serious allegations need to be investigated. Do they shift the rhetoric? And if they do shift the rhetoric and call him to resign, will that change the governor's calculation?
And that's what makes, I want to hear from Schumer, because you're right, that's what makes his calculation now and what he says next most interesting, because he did speak this morning. We'll get to that in 1 second. But we now know, reporting from our Gregory Krieg, that these New York House members, they coordinated this yesterday. They decided that if they act as a group, it gives them more power. It also puts pressure, they know, on any fellow House delegation members who haven't signed on their letter yet, but also on the senators. And, Chuck Schumer is the majority leader. His words would carry even more weight. Here's what he said this morning before we knew this letter was coming up.
I've always felt that sexual harassment is not tolerable.
Yeah, not tolerable. Come on, guys. All right, very dark story here. Did you know that the America First movement is using Twitter to push its message? As a proud Latino patriot who strives to always put America first.
It's been a privilege playing with you tonight.
Yes, gentlemen, it has been a privilege playing with you tonight. But I mean, these Nazis, they're all over Twitter, and they're spreading white nationalist ideas. But thank God, ABC is on the story. Now, get this, recruiting interns is not the only step Fuentes has taken to advance his movement since the AFPAC event. He has spoken repeatedly about recruiting 2022 congressional candidates that align with his group's far-right views. Early this week, he formally introduced a new 501c4 organization that will enable him to raise funds while keeping donors' identities secret. Some experts are baffled that Fuentes has been allowed to remain on Twitter. Yeah, how come this guy's still on Twitter? And we've got experts on extremism who say that Nick's Twitter account is indispensable to him as he looks to grow his movement. It also helps him normalize his goals, something that was also aided by that Representative Paul Gosar from Arizona appearing at both Nick Fuentes' AFPAC conference and then CPAC. If Nick Fuentes is removed from Twitter, it's a huge signal that he did something wrong. Right now, he hasn't been labeled in that way. So he can use that as basically literal verification. He not only has a blue check mark, he's being verified by one of the largest platforms. Fuentes has himself at times appeared surprised that his Twitter account remains active, repeatedly directing his followers to follow him over on other platforms that have fewer moderation guidelines. Follow me on Telegram while you still can. I have a feeling my days are numbered on Twitter. He tweeted in January. 2 months later, his account remains active.
So they downplay or even deny that they're good at something in order to look modest and be liked. But this tactic can backfire too. For one thing, people usually take the negative things we say about ourselves at face value. So if you present yourself as less knowledgeable or less competent than you actually are, research shows that other people are probably going to believe it. Not only that, but people tend not to like people who act as if they're not good at something that they're actually quite good at. Misrepresenting your positive qualities seems dishonest or calculating. It can also appear condescending, to look like you think you have to hide your superiority from all the little people. Or it might just look like you have low self-esteem. But isn't humility a good thing? Don't we like people who are humble? Yes, we do. But lying about your positive characteristics isn't humility. Humility isn't about portraying yourself more negatively than you really are. That's either some kind of false modesty or a self-effacing lie. Humility involves recognizing and sometimes acknowledging your positive characteristics and strengths and accomplishments.
Okay, this is from the Great Courses, Your Public Persona, Self-Presentation in Everyday Life by Mark Leary, PhD, professor at Duke University. This is all peer-reviewed, guys.
But at the same time, understanding that no matter how good you are at something, it doesn't entitle you to be treated special as a person. Humble people perceive and present themselves accurately, but they don't make a big deal out of their accomplishments and positive characteristics. No matter how good they are,
like me,
they know that they're fundamentally like everybody else, with a whole slew of weaknesses and shortcomings and negative characteristics. On top,
I was Hustler Magazine's Asshole of the Month, but you see me boasting about it?
On top of the motives to be seen as likable and as competent is a third common self-presentational motive. People generally want to be seen as possessing virtues of various kinds.
Okay, so there are three main ways that we want to come across. We want to be likable, we want to be liked, we want to be seen as competent, and we want to be seen as virtuous. So this is from the Great Courses, Your Public Persona, Self-Presentation in Everyday Life.
I'm using the word virtue here in its broadest sense. I don't mean just moral virtues, such as wanting people to think that you're honest or generous, but also social virtues, such as being perceived as conscientious or hardworking or loyal. We usually want other people to think we possess virtuous characteristics because most of the characteristics that we call virtues are things that make us good group members, good friends, good relationship partners. They attract other people and lead them to trust us, and they help our interactions and relationships with other people go smoothly. I suspect that you want the people around you to be honest, kind, loyal, patient, cooperative, unselfish, dependable, and so on.
Oh man, the chat is absolute gold. John says, I use crystals and magnets powered by batteries along with audio frequencies to stay in shape. So I remember once this Sheila I was dating suggested a bloke in the valley who did this thing with magnets. And so I went and visited him for several months, and then he even gave me a mattress that had magnets in it magnets for healing. I think it was in that book, Everyday Cures That They Don't Want You to Know About. So, yeah, I shelled out several $100s. I went and visited this bloke for a few months. It might have done me some good. Then he gave me this wonderful, like, healing, energetic, magnetic healing mattress. But then he wanted it back. But yeah, I'll try anything short of a finger up the bum. I mean, you can try to tell me that your finger up the bum has magical healing properties, but I've heard that one before. I mean, I may be from Curry, but I'm not going for that anymore. Lib Medley notes, in 20 years, there will be a Charlottesville reenactment society. Robert Prosper wants to know, what if Anne Boleyn was guilty as charged? Guilty of rooting her brother? That would explain everything. Luke misses being a Christian. Dennis Dale, Antifa is back at it in Portland. They attacked the federal courthouse last night. They set it aflame just hours after they tried removing barricades. Humility is a strategy. I'm heading downtown to check it out, says Dennis.
And I suspect that you'd prefer that other people see you in these virtuous ways as well. On top of that, people sometimes manage their impressions of virtue because it gives them added influence and power over other people. People who take the high road, or at least appear to take it, are often entitled to hold other people to the same standards. To say it differently, we can't expect other people to behave in some exemplary, virtuous way unless we look like we do. I can't complain about other employees not working hard enough unless it looks like I'm working really hard. And I can't criticize people for not being dependable or helpful or cooperative unless I appear to be these things. We also manage impressions of virtue when we serve as role models to other people. Most parents do this a lot. They convey impressions of themselves to their kids that they know are far more virtuous than they really are. In part, they'd be embarrassed if their kids saw their shortcomings and misdeeds. But they also know that parents teach by example. So it's hard to teach your kids to be a good person without appearing to be one yourself. Finally, people sometimes manage their impressions of a particular virtue because it's relevant to a particular situation or role.
Meanwhile, in
As
Paris,
soldiers might want to be seen as possessing the virtue of bravery, but not worry much about being seen as patient. Whereas an employee working with troubled children may want to be seen as patient, but not care about looking brave. Certain roles invite self-presentations of particular virtues, while sometimes allowing us to downplay others. So most of our self-presentational efforts involve trying to be perceived as likable, competent, and virtuous. But why do these three dimensions dominate people's self-presentations? Why is appearing likable, competent, and virtuous so important to people? There are two main reasons. The first is that the vast majority of people we interact with every day value these kinds of characteristics. There is no culture in which people value being despicable, incompetent, and villainous over being likable, competent, and virtuous. We all know that. So we're motivated to be seen in these three desirable ways. In addition to providing a foundation for high-quality social interactions and relationships, these three dimensions directly help us pursue many goals in life. Being seen as likable, competent, and virtuous increases your chances of getting the job you want, getting other people to go along with what you want to do, leading other people to treat you well, attracting customers if you're a salesperson, finding romantic partners, and they might even help you get off if you're accused of a crime. In short, we try to maintain these kinds of images because other people treat us better when we appear to be likable, competent, and virtuous. But it's not always easy. As much as we try to maintain these kinds of socially desirable images in the eyes of other people, we face some self-presentational challenges. First, no matter what impression people would like to convey, they obviously have to be believable. Even when the image a person is presenting is in fact accurate, other people must believe that it's a true reflection of the person's characteristics. The problem is that the